Captain's Log, June 10th, 2017. As I'm sure everyone is aware by now, last night Adam West passed away. He was 88 years old. He was battling apparently a short bout of leukemia, and happily he passed away in probably the best way humanly possible. He was surrounded by his family, by his loved ones, and he apparently passed very peacefully. So, it's, of course, super saddening that we lost Adam West. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. It was a real bummer to wake up to that news, and I just wanted to make a quick video and talk a little bit about Adam West, one of my favorite actors, certainly, of all time, and somebody who's been a major influence on me, and I certainly wouldn't be anything like the same if it weren't for Adam West. As you know, if you follow the channel much, and especially if you saw the Superhero Rewinds I put out a couple years ago about the 60s Batman series, I have a huge affinity for that version of Batman, for Adam West, for what I think is his comic genius, and he was also just, I think, a really great role model for kids, while at the same time creating this wonderful, absurd, as he always called, theater of the absurd piece in satirizing television and comic books and the superhero idea. That show was always really impressive to me because it's so layered. Because when you were a kid, or at least when I was a kid, I took it totally seriously, and Adam West Batman was just a role model. He was the way you ought to be. He was all about personal responsibility, making sure that you gave people the benefit of the doubt until they gave you a reason not to. Always upholding your principles and standing up for what you thought was right, regardless of what the outcome might be, never compromising your principles. And then when I was an adult and I went back and watched it, I realized that there was this whole other layer of satire where, I mean, I always, growing up, had a sense that it was a lighter show compared to other iterations of Batman, but I didn't realize just how much of a parody of superhero culture and of comics it was, and this idea that if in the real world you had a superhero that did everything for everyone, people's abilities would kind of atrophy, and they would become complacent, and they would become apathetic, and that's what you have with the police department in that show. So while Batman he was creating what I've always called a culture of dependence, and it was kind of making fun of really that Superman idea of if he's taking care of everything for everyone, yeah, he might be setting a good example, and you might look up to him and want to be like him, but what happens when he's not around anymore? What would happen if he left? And recently, the Batman 66, Wonder Woman 77 crossover book has actually tackled that question, and you get to see what the Batman 66 world would look like if you no longer had Batman in it, and if he quit. And it's kind of the Dark Knight Returns of Batman 66. But anyway, so it's wonderfully layered in that way, and it's something that I think is going to continue to stand the test of time. I'm so glad that series got released on home video before Adam West passed away, and that he got to see the culture really embrace him again in these last few years. For the longest time, of course, his Batman was kind of seen as a laughingstock, as being too campy, as being not, for a lot of people, not my Batman. And a lot of people blamed it for how long it took us to finally get a serious Batman movie with Batman 89, and for how long, even after that, it took to get a more grounded Batman with Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises. And arguably, and I think I made this point when I did those Superhero Rewinds, arguably you couldn't have probably even gotten to that point if it weren't for the 60s Batman show, because it got Batman so popular in the first place. And then the argument just becomes, would Batman, because the idea is so elemental and so provocative, would it have gotten that popular on its own with some other iteration, maybe just comics, maybe eventually some kind of television or movie thing without Adam West Batman? And that ends up certainly being the argument. But I'm so glad that now that Batman is so insanely popular, that we've gotten to a point where every version seems to kind of be valid, and you can kind of pick and choose, and a campier version or a jokier version isn't necessarily going to tarnish the more serious version. We can have all of these things. We can have every different kind of iteration of Batman, and I'm glad that DC finally embraced it. I'm glad that a whole new generation of kids has gotten to get to see this show, and I don't know if they're enjoying it. I haven't really talked to any kids besides my own looking at 60s Batman, but it's just really cool that it's available now, that we got it in such a good release with some really cool special features, and it really has reverence for that material, and then there's been all kinds of great merchandise and stuff, and I'm just really glad that Adam West finally got to see that. He was pretty clearly desperate to finally get to see that happen and get a lot of his own memories and his take on those days out to people, and that's why he released, and this is underground and very hard to get. I have a copy, but he released this thing he made in his basement called Adam West Naked, which I've talked about a little bit here and there, where it's basically several hours of just him sitting in front of a camera talking about every episode and what it was like to make it, and he's really super thorough, and he made that because there was no way to get it on DVD. And, you know, imagine you're Adam West thinking that you're going to have a really serious career and probably an action movie career. He was offered Bond at one point, famously, and he turned it down because he didn't think he was right for it, and he wasn't British, and he took Batman because he thought it was such a brilliant, fresh kind of comedy. You know, imagine that you're that guy, and the big thing you end up being known for is Batman. It only lasts for three seasons. That seems to be it was just the sweet spot, and the world needed that right then, and then not again after. And then you're typecast for that, but you still love it, and you have all these years where it's difficult to find the kind of work that you wanted to do and that you were doing before Batman, and you can't even get anything. I don't know if there is anything similar to Batman, but everything, you couldn't even get that. Everything that he would try to audition for, well, you're too recognizable. You're just Batman, and it's not like he never worked again, obviously, but he didn't have the career that he could have been. Imagine having that, and then the one big thing that you're known for, that you still embrace, that you still love, that you still go to conventions to meet people and talk about, never gets released. And it's so important, it was so important to him that that happened, and that he was able to share it with people again. And I'm really glad that so many of his memories, that he was able to get those out, both on paper, you know, in his book, and then in special features and things, before he passed away. It's also so wonderful, and partly just because it was really, really good, that he got to play the part one more time, or possibly two more times. We'll talk about that in a second. But Adam West put out, if you're not aware, this wonderful film that serves as a tribute to that show, and also Batman history at large, and our perceptions of that character over the decades through various lenses, in a movie called Batman Return to the Batcave. And it's him and Burt Ward reprising their roles, also Julie Newmar, and then some sound-alikes for the villains, and some of them sound really good. Their Joker is real close. Wally Wingert doing Riddler, doing a second Riddler, because of course he did it also in the Arkham games, and it's totally different. And he's doing a Gorshin, sounds almost perfect. And of course Wally Wingert was friends with both Adam West and Frank Gorshin, and it was just a big deal to me anyway that he got to voice that. But anyway, So that movie was absolutely wonderful. It was a real treat. Weirdly, I watched it again just a couple nights ago. We had Eric's family here, and I showed it to them, and we all really enjoyed it. And that was one of my favorite things that came out last year. I'm so glad that got to happen, and he got to voice it again. And there is supposed to be a second one, and I'm really glad they were making these almost at the same time, because, of course, I mean, this sounds awful, but he was getting up in years, so who knows how long he would be with us. And now that he's passed away, I haven't heard word yet, and of course, it's too early in the day for at least news outlets to be talking about this, but I imagine he already had his lines recorded for the second movie, which was supposed to finally introduce Two-Face to the 60s Batman universe, but of course in animation and voiced by William Shatner. And hopefully that happened. If not, that's really sad, but there is a good chance that we're going to have a wonderful Adam West tribute in getting to hear him voice the character one more time posthumously, which I think would just be a really big deal and hopefully attracts a lot of people's attention. So I suppose that's going to be it for me. I just wanted to talk a little bit about my love for Adam West and just express my, of course, sadness that he's no longer with us. I did get to meet Adam West one time. I'm so glad that I was fortunate to have gotten to do that before he passed away. This was 2009 or 10, somewhere around there, and I've shown this before, but I brought a Batarang that was made by the folks that own one of the 60s Batman cars, and and so this is signed to me from Adam West, and when I met him at a Star Trek convention, and he and I, of course, I was just in line. I didn't get to talk to him for a long time, but we talked a little bit about Metropolis, Illinois. He had been there before, and he was just as gracious and charming as people always say that he is, and as you might expect. And he was always kind of in character. It got to the point where Batman and Adam West were this really interesting blend. He loved doing that subtle deadpan voice so much that, especially when he was talking to fans, he would always break that out, and he always gave you a little bit of Batman whenever you would meet him. And anyway, it's I want to do some kind of tribute for Adam West on the channel. I'm not sure what exactly yet. Later in the year, Eric and I are still planning on doing Batmania, so we'll be doing commentaries already for all the Adam West Batman movies, and everything Batman in movie form anyway. But we may try to do something else in the not-too-distant future for Adam West. I'm not sure what yet. So finally, rest in peace, Adam West. Atomic batteries to power, turbines to speed. I am Captain Logan, and thanks everybody for watching.